Hey planty friends, how's it going? I hope you're all alive and doing well and you've got through the last month or so unscathed. Really happy that I have my plants at home for me to keep myself distracted from reality. So I am bringing you here today to talk about watering all the houseplants that I have. Let's get in it. Okay, so watering houseplants. I have always had a little bit of a scheduled routine in watering my houseplants, and I've always liked to only water on Sundays. Sundays is like my day at home by myself where I go around and drink my coffee and check my plants out and I water them. And when I used to have a smaller amount of plants, it was kind of manageable to be like Sunday's watering day and I would just go around and water everything. And now I have so many plants in my collection that keeping track of watering every single one of them on Sundays can either lead to root rot or leaves dying. It leads to moldy soil. It leads to cacti and succulents rotting, and it's kind of dangerous for me to water every single Sunday on routine when some of my plants don't need to be watered. So I have been doing a lot of work in the last 5 months or so trying to listen to my plants and listen to what they tell me they need, which is really hard because I like to think that I know what they need. Of course you're thirsty, you need more water. Don't you need more water? And they're like, no, I'm good, I don't need water. Don't you want some water? You're thirsty. You're thirsty, you want water. Even on the days when I say, no, that one doesn't need water, I'll look at it and be like, maybe just a little bit of water. So it's like an endless cycle. So I really try as best as I can to make sure I know which ones need watering by taking a look at the foliage on the plant. So I have picked specifically 5 plants out of my whole collection. I have them here. And I'm going to show you how I check when they need to be watered and how I actually water them. Okay, so when it comes to water, there's different types of water. So a lot of people say distilled water is the way to go. I don't have filtered water in my home, and I don't have money to go buy filtered and distilled water. So what I do is I fill a pitcher of water up and I leave it on the counter all the time. Currently my cat is watching me right now because I leave this on the counter and they for some reason think it's their water now. So this is called counter water in my house. The cats love the counter water. I fill this up, I let it sit, and I let all of the chlorine and other impurities in the water kind of escape through the air bubbles, and that leaves me a little bit like more cleaner water than what I started with. What I like to do with the counter water from the pitcher when it's time to water my plants is put it in my little water pitcher because it's easier to water a lot of my plants with the pitcher, and I will then fill this back up and leave it for another few days. In regards to not watering every Sunday, that has been really helpful in like watering on different days of the week, so I can like give time for my water to sit out on the counter, if that makes sense, right? Now, sometimes I run out of the counter water from the pitcher, and sometimes I do have to use water from the sink, which is fine. It's okay. My plants have survived all of these years with its really, really unfiltered water. I live by the mountain, so I have the best water. It tastes great, but there are a lot of things in it that makes it pretty hard. I also have some plants that I brought to the table here for this conversation that I put in the sink and just drench with water out in the sink. So that's getting the unfiltered water, but there's a reason behind my madness and why I water in the sink and just pour the water in it so the water drains out the bottom. So I'll get to that in a minute and I'll show you what those plants are. So some tools that I try to use for some of my plants that are in bigger pots or ones that I don't have drainage holes so I can't see like at the bottom if it's really moist or not. So these are some tools that I use. The moisture meter, some of you may use these already or have seen them in other videos. I've been testing this out now for months. I've been trying really hard to see if it works, how it works. This fancy one comes with 3 different like settings on it for light, pH, and for moisture. I only use it for moisture. I've never used it for any of the other things. With this came a little thing that shows all the different plants and then what the numbers should be and how you shouldn't let the numbers go below that. So as you can see on here, there's a bunch of numbers and it tells you if it's like moist or wet, or if it's really, really dry. And I just tend to stick to the dry, moist, or wet areas. The numbers, I feel like I have seen it just like have been inconsistent. So I just stick to, you know, dry, moist, or wet. Some other moisture meters only have that and they don't have numbers. Now this comes with numbers to tell you for different types of plants what numbers you shouldn't let it get below. So I kind of refer to this while I'm walking around and watering and using the moisture meter, but it's not set in stone. Like if I check it and the number on here shows something, I still will look at the plant and decide myself whether it needs to be watered or not, but it's a handy tool. The other tool I like to use, which is just cheap, easy, everyone can find in their house, is a wooden skewer or a chopstick. So what's nice about this is you can just stick it in the soil. When you pull it out, if there's a bunch of dirt and soil stuck to it and the stick feels a little moist, your plant doesn't need to be watered. Same concept, stick your finger in the soil, and if you pull your finger out and it's covered in soil, it doesn't need to be wet. So if you stick this in, you pull it out, there's no soil in it, your plant is dry. Stick your finger in the soil, pull it out, there's no soil, it's dry. So these two handy tools I use intermittently, but you can also use just the finger as well. Finger your plants, they like it. All right, so like I said, I have 5 plants that I brought here for us to watch me water. I'm realizing now that 2 of them I water in the sink, so I'm probably gonna have to take you over to the sink anyways. I should probably clean my sink before I do that. The only reason why I brought specifically 5 plants here for this situation is because I tried to record a video of me watering every single one of the plants in my house, and it ended up being a 2-hour video. That was it not edited, and I was like, no one's gonna watch an hour-long video of me watering every single one of my plants. I'm sure you might have some might have enjoyed seeing all of my plants. It would have been like a plant tour and you would have loved it. I didn't have time to go around and edit that entire thing, and I'm trying to simplify this just a little bit more. That's why I brought them here, to show you a little bit more about them and how I specifically water them. All right, our first subject of this watering concept here is a Hyaworthia maculata, and this Hyaworthia maculata is a succulent. First thing to remember, friends, is that cacti are succulents, but not all succulents are cacti. Did I say that right? All cacti are succulents, but not all succulents are cacti. All cacti are succulents, but not all succulents are cacti. Okay, this is a succulent. Succulents store water in the leaves, and they store water in their stems, and they hold water in the body of the plant. They typically will not flower, just store water, and they can last longer in between waterings because they can store all the water in their leaves. But one important thing to know about succulents and know when they need to be watered. So since they store all the water in their leaves and their foliage, you can tell when it needs to be watered. I have purposefully dried this one out as much as I could for this video. These little guys, they look a little flat, right? Let's see if you can see that. They look a little flat, look a little sad. See that one right there. He is plump, right? You can kind of almost see through him. He kind of looks a little translucent. That's a leaf that is still holding water. But you can see though, these ones here look a little flat, look a little dry. They're kind of browning a little bit. They're wrinkly. That's how you can tell that it needs to be watered, and that's how you can tell that this one needs to be watered, because these are usually nice and plump. You can usually see the water kind of sitting on top of it. So what I do for him, he doesn't have a drainage hole at the bottom, which is a no-no in the plant world, I know. But what I do is I take my counter water and I water him from top. And I water all the way around it, just giving him some water. He dries out really quickly, so water you can't. I can even feel that it's heavier now, and I know that it has plenty of water in it now. And then in a few days, these little leaves that sit on the top of it won't be so flat, they'll be a little bit more plump. So that's how you water a succulent. My next one is my Begonia lucerna, which if you can see it in the sun right now, oh my gosh. Look at the backs of those leaves, how purple they are. She doesn't sit directly in the sun, so this is a really good moment. Look at those polka dots. Okay, I'm getting sidetracked. I'm mostly just admiring my plant right now. This is one of the situations where I talked to you about looking when it needs to be watered. This leaf here, on the this is my right side, is drooping. She usually sits up straight. So that's how I know that she needs water, is because she's drooping. But this one, I bottom water. So as you can see, I have this plastic little thing here at the bottom, and I put water and I fill up this whole tray on the bottom, and I let her drink whatever she wants. And when this tray is empty of water, so I'll water her, fill it up, and then as soon as I see that she's soaked it all up, I'll put more water in there. Put more water in, she drinks it up. Now if I see water sitting in there for too long, I'll pick it up and I'll drain the water out of here. That means she's done drinking. I let her drink however much water she wants to stay hydrated. Okay, she was way too heavy for me to carry in that video, and it was not going to be easy for me to show you how I water her. So I wanted to show you the moisture meter on this. According to that little graph that I have, it says a begonia should not drop below a number 4. Right now she's sitting at a 3, so she is below what it suggests. So she is thirsty. Once again, I did this video to kind of like show as an example of like how to listen to your plants when they want to be watered. This droopy little leaf or stem and these leaves are really, really thin and frail. So that is why I'm going to be watering it from the bottom. And so just like I told you I was going to do, is fill this whole tray up full of water. Who knows if you can actually see this on camera. But we'll come back to her in a minute, all right? Well, I'll show you in a minute when she has soaked up all the water, and I'll give her some more water. Okay, my begonia was so heavy I didn't even realize that I can't even hold her up. So, moving along now, friends. We've got another big one here. I've shown you this one before. You guys know so much about my spider plant. I love it dearly. But I wanted to show you how I water this one. Now, he hangs up over here in the corner. I just took it down so you can kind of see how the growth is doing up here. I haven't watered in over 2 weeks because I wanted to show you. This one will tell you when it is thirsty, because these right here, the leaves start to fold in on itself. You can see that here. See how they're folding in a little bit? See, that one's a little flat, but it gets folded back over here. So that's how I know that it is very thirsty, is pretty much all of them have kind of just folded in on itself. The other way that you can check to see if it really is thirsty, if you're just questioning yourself, is to stick it in the soil and pull it out. See, you've got your little trusty chopstick. I put it in there and pull it out, and she is dry. Yep, see, no soil stuck to it. She is a dry one. We stick our moisture meter in too, just to check. It says it's at a 1. She's dry. And this says to not go below a 4. She's really dry. It's best too to use your moisture meter and stick it in different areas of the pot, because different pockets of soil will be more moist. So here in the middle, it does say that it's at a 3. So over here was at a 1, said she's dry. Over here it says that she's at a 3. So, and you can see here in the middle that a little bit more soil stuck to the prongs of the moisture meter. So she's a little bit moist in the center than she is on the edge. So when I water her, which I top water her, I'm going to focus kind of on the edge areas, since I did do the moisture meter and my chopstick, show that the edges were a little bit more dry. Now I top water her because the roots, there's a lot of roots that stick out of the top here, and I really want to make sure that I get these roots wet. And then after I'm done watering, I know I can see in this little drainage thing right here that there's a bunch of water soaking up at the bottom. And then the bottom part of this, it will soak up all the water. So look at this one's gonna have these cute little blossoms. Oh. Okay, so I have shown you the Hierorthia, type of aloe-ish plant. And I showed you the begonia. She's drinking up that water. She still has a little bit left in there, but I'll show you here in a minute when there's no water. Next, I have 2 different plants that I will be watering in the sink, but I'm going to talk to you about the plants first before I set up and move all the way over there. Right, next up is our silver pothos, satin pothos, skindapsis, as you may. So this I have had for a long time now. Long time. It's 2020. Everything seems like a long time. I think I've had her for 4 months. And she hasn't put out any new growth since I brought her home. A lot of the new leaves that were coming up inside shriveled up and died. I don't know. This had a new growth point on it and it shriveled up and died, but now it has this new leaf that's coming out right here. So I don't know, I really love her. I think she's beautiful. Her foliage is just so beautiful. You can see kind of in the sunshine that silvery sheen that she has. When you know it's thirsty, you can see that the leaves curl up. So you can see this leaf curled up here. That one's kind of curled. So that's how you know, here's a good one, that the leaves are curled. You want these leaves to be flat. When they're flat, you know that they are not thirsty, but when they are curled up, that's how you know that it's thirsty. Skindapsis is on my list too, and it said it can't go below a 6, and it's at a 5, so we know she's thirsty. Right now I have her in a nursery pot inside of a cover pot, and it has a drainage hole on the cover pot, but I have a little blocker that came with it, so for a while I was just bottom watering it, letting it soak it up, but it wasn't soaking up the water. The soil that's inside of it is very airy. There's a lot of perlite, there's a lot of bark, and I think that it was having a hard time soaking it all up. You can see the roots at the bottom of this, and so it might be root bound, but I'm going to keep it in this nursery pot for another year because we're getting into winter and I'm just not in a position to repot it right now. So I'm going to keep it in here, but because the soil is so airy, I like to just run water through and have it drain out the bottom, and I'll have the water just kind of soak into the soil, but I want to make sure the water comes out. These are very susceptible to root rot, so you don't want it sitting in the water for too long at all. So that's why I put it in the sink and trickle the water. I just turn the sprayer nozzle on my faucet in the sink and put it in the sink and let the water drain out of it until I know that it's nice and moist. And then I let it sit in the sink for a minute. It drains as much excess water out of it, and then I put it back in its cover pot. That's been keeping it alive, so I'm going with that. Another subject I'm bringing to the table is myself. How you can tell that I am thirsty, I am cranky, I will break out, and I cry. So I also need to drink water because I get dehydrated. There's no moisture meter to check if I'm dry. It's just my attitude. And my dry humor. Okay, the last and final plant I will be showing you here is another great example of a plant that tells you when it's thirsty. Okay, so our next subject here is my Hoya Crimson Queen. The reason why I decided to bring this one to the table is because you know when it's thirsty. So it's kind of like a succulent, so it's a very hardy plant, and you know when it's thirsty because it also stores the water in its leaves. But one way to really tell, and I have a really good example, so that's why I decided to bring this to the table here. This leaf right here, oh, that's perfect lighting, right there. You can see how wrinkly it is. You can feel the texture of it and see how wrinkly that leaf is. Also, it's very weak. Compared to this leaf right here, when I try to bend it, it barely bends. Same thing here. These are sturdy, these are hard. This one seems very flimsy, and like I said, you can feel it in the leaf that it has sucked all the water out of it. For the most part, everything on here is pretty sturdy. They're really hard, but that's how I know that it's getting thirsty though, is I can see these flimsy little leaves. It's hard to tell with this plant. I'm still trying to figure out Hoya. So I go a while without watering it before I do, and I know that when the leaves get flimsy, that's how I know it's thirsty. So same thing as my skindapsis, my silver pothos, very airy soil, a lot of bark in here. I don't think there's perlite. There's no perlite in here, it's literally just bark that's inside here. There's a lot of roots in there, you can see them spread all throughout. So I do the same thing as I do with the skindapsis. I put it in the sink and spray it and let the water drain out of it and let the roots try to absorb some of the water. yeah, that's been the best method for me for these two plants because of the really airy soil. I tried to like let it sit in its own water and it just won't suck anything up. So I think it's because there's no soil in it and it's just a lot of bark, so nothing is all like able to soak up into the roots. So I just do that thing where I just run the water over it, let the water drain out of it, and then put it back over. But with the sunlight, can you see how beautiful those leaves are in the middle? Ooh, oh girl, look how pink those stems are. So now that I showed you those two and showed you what you need to do to be aware of when to water, because you can tell with the leaves. Moisture meters for these two, the Skindaxis and the Hoya, I don't do the moisture meter often for those because I just kind of take a look at the leaves. I'm really just trying to read if I plant and see when it's thirsty. So I don't use a moisture meter for those two. Okay, let's go over to the sink. I'm going to show you how I water these two plants. Okay, full disclaimer, this is how I water some of my plants, but for the majority, I top water, just like I did with the Hydorthia. My Pothos here, I top water just because I can't get to the bottom tray. I also have a spray bottle and I spray some of my plants just to get the top part of the soil moist because they like humidity. I also have plants that I use my moisture meter for and some that I don't use my moisture meter at all. Some I have such a good relationship with the plant that I know that they need to be watered every Sunday. That's what I've done. That's what kept it alive. That's what I do. So this is what's worked for me. These are pretty common plants I see in interwebs. So I hope that you found this video helpful. And just know that water at your own leisure. If you think your plant looks thirsty, just things to consider. Does the soil look moist? Stick your finger. Does your finger come out wet? Probably doesn't need to be watered. Is there a drainage hole? If not, you really want to consider and make sure that your plant is completely dried out before you water it, because if there's water already sitting at the bottom and you add more water, you're going to get a waterlogged plant. Just talk to your plant, get to know your plant. I'm in a very dry climate, so watering a lot helps my plants. They dry out really quickly, especially now with winter and running the furnace. So it really is about getting to know your plants and getting to know how they will thrive and survive in your care. I hope you found this semi-helpful and informative, and you got to see some of my plants and my beautiful flowers that my boyfriend gave me for our 10-year anniversary. I hope you enjoyed this. I will try to get some more plant content out to you soon. Be sure to check me out on my Instagram at peakgrowing. Here is that handle. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I guess you just like the video and then you subscribe to my channel. I'm old, I don't know how all of this, but I'd really like if you'd subscribe. That would be super cool. And I hope you enjoyed seeing my plants. Oh, one thing before I let you go. I told you before I let you go, I'd show you that she drank up all the water. There's no more water in here. So I'm gonna put more water in there for it. Like I said, she's thirsty, she drinks it up. And with this beautiful babe, I will end the video here. You got to check out all of my watering habits and I got to see some of my plants, and the sunshine is out and it feels great, and we're gonna get through the rest of 2020, my friends. Bye guys!